Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk. My guest this week is head football coach of Macalester College, Phil Nicolaides. Coach Nicolaides is going to tell us about his time going to Carnegie Mellon, why he decided to take up 2 degrees there, the experience as a high school coach and a scout, wanting to get back into college football, and then his time at Randolph-Macon and working his way to Macalester College. We're also going to talk about, and I'm going to make sure I make this abundantly clear, congratulations to the Cortland Red Dragons. We apologize here at Dingo Talk for not picking you in the last 3 weeks. In fact, I went on this show last week and said I didn't think you could play 12 perfect quarters. I would say you, for all intents and purposes, you did that. So congratulations to you on your national championship, and we will talk about that in overtime. Obviously, as you can see, it's that time of year for us here at Dingo Talk. It's the Ugly Sweater episode. So for those of you that celebrate, Merry Christmas. For those of you that celebrate any other holiday, Happy Holidays for this time. Make sure if you're watching us on YouTube and Spotify, you give us a little like or hit that little notification bell. And make sure you check out the social medias. That's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. The only one that's different is the Instagram page. That's Dingo_Talk. I'm excited to get into this episode, and then we're going to be in overtime talking with Serenity about how the season ended and what the thoughts are for next season. But without further ado, this is Coach Nicolaides. What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Dingo Talk. My guest this week is the head football coach at Macalester College, Coach Phil Nicolaides. Coach, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. I'm excited to talk to you about PA, a little bit of Pennsylvania football, a little bit of Minnesota football, and kind of get a gauge for you. You've kind of traveled a little bit across the gambit. So first things first, you're from Exton, PA, out on the eastern side of the state, but you decided to get on 76 and come 4.5 hours towards Pittsburgh, actually in Pittsburgh. Why was Carnegie Mellon where you decided to pursue your 2 degrees?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very similar to a lot of the young men that we recruit here at Macalester, looking to kind of use football, leverage football to get into the best school I can, or I could at the time. And really looked at a handful of schools. I didn't want to travel too far, so I wanted to go to a really good academic school, be challenged academically, and stay within driving distance. And so Carnegie Mellon just kind of fit that mold. And I'll be honest, I definitely wasn't too high on their recruiting board. I was probably one of those guys that recruited themselves a little bit. I was excited about the place, and academically, I think I was probably one of the more borderline cases that year. And Coach Lackner was kind of like, hey, early decision 1, that's going to be your path to Carnegie Mellon. And Jason Macrinos, who's a really good recruiter, really good coach, had recruited me. And I built up a pretty good relationship with him, been out to campus a couple times. And when I found that early decision was my path, I talked it over with my parents and ended up pulling the trigger and having a really good experience there.
Now, were you right before the transition for Carnegie Mellon from and I always get this wrong, was it the OAA or the
UAA?
UAA. Was that,
yes.
That was right around that time, right? The transition from the UAA for football into the PAC.
All 4 of my years, we played 7 non-conference games. And our last 3 games were always U Chicago, Wash U, Case Western. So that was the UAA schedule. 3 conference games. I always laughed that the UAA had an all conference team with like first team, second team, and it's like if you played, you if you're not on one of those units, you probably weren't the best player. It was kind of an interesting experience. We played a lot of Western PA teams who were in the pack, a lot of Ohio teams over in the NCAC. And so just traveled a good amount, probably more than they do these days. But overall, like I said, had a really good experience.
And last question on that, what was Coach Lackner like?
He was awesome. I mean, he was one of those guys that I caught him towards the tail end of his career, when he was, age wise getting a little bit older, but he was a fiery guy. I mean, he had a ton of juice at practice. When I was going through there, he was a lot of times he would run the scout team offense on the defensive side of the ball. So he'd be the guy holding up cards. And then a lot of times he'd get so pissed that it wasn't executed up to standard that he would jump in and play scout team quarterback as a 60-year-old guy. So he was awesome to play for. Obviously had a lot of success and really took Carnegie Mellon through several decades as a player, assistant coach, and then the head coach. And I have a ton of respect for Coach Lackner. Was actually his wife passed away going into my senior year, and so I know that was a tough period for him, and so we were fortunate that we got to see him be go through something tough and be human and real with us, which I look back on some of the things that I really learned from my college experience and watching a grown man who was typically, really tough, really hard-nosed, just express vulnerability and be really transparent about how hard that was for him. That was something that I've always thought back to and kind of connected with and tried to, carry on it as I became a coach.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, I do have to ask this. I lied. That wasn't the last question about Carnegie Mellon. I have to ask, 2 degrees on top of being a student athlete. Not an easy task. Why the 2 degrees?
So Macalester is a liberal arts college, and I'm kind of the poster child for why liberal arts is a good route for a lot of young people, because I did not go to a liberal arts school, and I probably should have. When I was 18, when coaches were asking me, hey, what do you want to study? I mean, I thought I had it all figured out. I was like, I'm going to study business finance. I'm going to go be an investment banker, work on Wall Street. M&A, something fancy. And so applied to the business school, went through 2.5 years of the finance program there in the Tepper School of Business, and did an internship after my junior season or my junior school year at a brokerage. And I was like, man, this is really not for me. I hadn't really enjoyed my classes up to that point. I was kind of like, squeaking by with C pluses and things like that to keep the GPA in good shape, but really wasn't passionate about it. And I could tell that other people in my classes and a lot of my friends were passionate about it. And that internship was really kind of the final straw that broke the camel's back, where I was just like, I don't think this is what I want to do the rest of my life. And so I had picked up a minor in psychology earlier on in college. And I really liked those classes. I looked forward to going to those classes. And I always say I got A's in my psych classes, C's in my finance classes, and averaged out with about a B average. And obviously didn't know that psych was going to take me into football coaching at the time. But looking back, it's one of those things where the dots connecting kind of makes sense. The stars kind of aligned. And but yeah, I shouldn't have been a finance major. And I was fortunate enough. I realized it early on enough that I was able to pick up a more applicable degree.
Now, how do we get to, because I see the 13 season here as I'm looking at my notes. You end up out in Colorado. So let's talk about how we get there, and then we'll talk about making your way back to PA to Franklin and Marshall.
Yep. So graduated, and like I said, I knew that the finance route wasn't for me. I had applied for a couple jobs, and thankfully they didn't work out in the finance realm. I'm really thankful they didn't work out, because my life would have been completely different. But then I started thinking about how I could merge something I'm passionate about with my business degree. So my business degree wasn't a complete waste. And so I looked at working for an agency or something in sports business or sports management. and ended up connecting with an NFL agent out in Colorado Springs, and was fortunate enough. I went out there, worked for about 5-6 months with him, and enjoyed myself. But I learned when I got out there that you have to go to law school to be an NFL agent.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Reading contracts, negotiating things like that, and I didn't necessarily want that. And volunteered. Ended up wanting to volunteer as an assistant coach at a high school, and got on with a really good staff, Pine Creek High School out there. And as my internship was wrapping up and I was starting to figure out what I wanted to do next, it was pretty obvious that I wanted to keep coaching. And it was kind of what I talked about in college. I really looked forward to practice every day. I really looked forward to hanging out with the guys on the coaching staff at Pine Creek. And so just after that experience, kind of decided to dive into coaching and start looking for college jobs.
And then why is Franklin and Marshall the first job that came open, or was it the best opportunity for you?
It was funny, like January, February, March of that year into April, I was applying, on the scoop every day, applying to just about every job that was out there, just trying to get my foot in the door some way, somehow, and then ended up getting like 3 job offers within a week. It was just kind of like, wait, a lot of no's, and then 3 yeses. And Franklin and Marshall was great for me from a location standpoint. It was about 45 minutes to an hour outside of where I grew up. And I was able to actually reconnect with Mark Fetterman, who was he had gotten hired by John Troxell as the defensive coordinator at Franklin and Marshall. And Coach Fetterman had actually coached me in high school. He was my high school DC, knew that I was getting into coaching. And so he was able to bring me along in one of those entry-level positions where I was able to coach defensive backs and kind of get my foot in the door.
Talk to us a little bit about that experience at Franklin and Marshall. You're there for 2 years. And then we're obviously going to talk about the Yellow Jackets down there in Ashland. What was the experience like, and how did that prepare you as a position coach to then move into the position with Randolph-Macon as the DC? You go from controlling a room to controlling the entire defense, basically. How did that prepare you for that?
Yeah, one thing actually that I look back, I didn't realize it at the time, but one thing that I think really helped me out was sharing an office with Coach Fetterman while I was there. So everything that the D coordinator was doing, I was sitting right next to him. And I always, it's funny here at Macalester, we recently, we used to have these individual offices, and I was kind of like, we need more of a bullpen setting where we can all be around each other, connect, because a lot of learning just happens, throughout the course of the day. It's not necessarily structured. A lot of it happens organically. And I think my experience at Franklin and Marshall, sharing an office with Coach Fetterman and having an office right next to the head coach, John Troxell, that was a great experience for me. And I can't say that when I left Franklin and Marshall, I necessarily was like, gung ho that I was ready to be a coordinator. But I left Franklin and Marshall with a lot of good experience, and being such a similar school to Macalester in terms of academics, I've been able to pull from that experience a lot. And I look back on that and really good memories. And Coach Troxell's, I consider him a close friend and mentor, as well as Coach Fetterman. Both have done phenomenal jobs where they've been, and certainly learned a lot from them.
And then obviously you sat down, you talked with Coach Aruza at Randolph-Macon. What was the draw to Ashland? What was the draw for you, minus obviously that next step up in the coaching ladder? And what was the experience like?
Yeah, that position, when that position came open, that was kind of my fork in the road moment, between wanting to go the Division III route and go be a D3 head coach, or try to pursue a grad assistant job at a D1 school and go that other path. And so for me, when I sat down with Pedro at Randolph-Macon, anybody that knows him, I mean, he's no nonsense. He's very he communicates really well. He sets clear expectations. He sets clear standards. And I was really fortunate that he had a relationship previously with Coach Troxel from Franklin and Marshall. And that, I think, was enough to get me through the door. And Coach Aruz and I had a little bit of a relationship prior, but we're able to sit down after that second season in Franklin and Marshall. And I'm not going to say I sat there and I could tell that, things were, that he was going to be one of the better coaches in the country at the D3 level. I definitely didn't have that thought, but I could tell that he was going to challenge me in ways that I felt like I needed to be challenged. He was very adamant about standards and expectations, and I could tell that not only was he going to push the players, but he was going to push me as an individual and as a coach, and just seemed like he really was building something special down there. And it was, obviously had a great experience there and kind of blew my expectations out of the water for sure.
Well, and you were part of the beginning of where we are kind of now for the Yellow Jackets and the winning in the playoffs and the continuous domination of the ODAC. I
get what you're saying. Looking at the records there, I really feel like I stepped into a great situation where the wheels were already turning there long before I got there. I mean, Coach Aruza had been there for, I think, over 12 years before I got there. And so I think one thing that Coach Aruza talks about a lot is how the culture precedes the positive results, right? And if you recruit character and you recruit really good human beings and really good people, then the on-field results are gonna take care of themselves. And I look at when I arrived there, I think the culture was on its way. I mean, it was very much in place. And I just kind of got to step in and reap the benefits of that culture with really good players, really good kids. So I by no means stepped in and was the influential factor in the meteoric rise that they've seen. It was, I would say, the 12, 13 years prior to my arrival that really laid that foundation.
Okay, so let me ask you this. 2020 was a rough year for everybody. What was it like coaching through that? Because you guys, everybody was kind of in that week to week, day to day. How do we get players on the field? How do we get back to playing? And then I know that as we kind of developed, okay, we're going to let players practice. We're going to let players do this and that. It was the phase one is like 6 guys are allowed to be on the field. Phase 2, we can have like the offense, but no defense. And so what was that experience like? And then what led you to obviously the position you're in now at Macalester?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I remember this very, very distinctly, having a conversation with Pedro when the pandemic was kind of taken into full force. And I remember we said that, and we both agreed on this, that all the limitations that were being placed on being able to lift, being able to train, being able to work out, we kind of said everyone's dealing with those limitations. And we really felt like our culture, the young men that we had in our program, were going to handle it really well. And that we had an opportunity to come out of that stronger than a lot of programs, just because of the types of people that we had in that program. And so, we moved all of our weight equipment outside. We were lifting in a parking lot for much of that off season. And, Virginia's not Minnesota cold by any means, but there were definitely some cold mornings out there. And, I really look at that experience as just kind of a microcosm of how Pedro runs that program. It's, let's take any adversity and make the most of it and come out of it stronger. Let's not waste the lesson. Let's not waste opportunities. And so, I mean, Coach, he got really creative with our weight program. He got really creative with how we were going to practice. And, we did a lot of sprint training where we were socially distanced and understanding that we couldn't be in a weight room. And he just did a great job of keeping everybody engaged, keeping everybody connected. And it ended up winning a championship in a shortened season. And that was an awesome experience just because of what all the players had sacrificed and been through over those last few months.
Coach, what was it about Macalester that when you went through the interview process and they call you and say, we'd like to make you the next head coach, what was going through your mind? Why was Macalester in Minnesota the next move?
Yeah, I when I flew out here for my interview, I didn't know much about Macalester other than that it was a high academic, highly selective institution. Other than that, I obviously you Google things and you try to do some research, preparing for jobs, and Pedro was a great resource for me through this process. Kind of like, hey, make sure with this being your first job that it's a place where you feel like you can be successful, and a place that you feel like there's support from the administration, from the president, from the athletic director, and enough support where you feel like you can go in and turn things around and make a real impact there. And through my interview process, I've told people it was kind of like a blind date, honestly, where didn't really know what to expect. And then as the process went, I felt like the values of the institution, the values of Macalester really aligned with my personal values and what I think the college experience should be, in large part. And just really felt like for a first head coaching job, that I had the support. I had the people here that were going to make this a possibility to build something strong. And I think we're obviously still in the early stages of that, but the people I'm surrounded with here have been awesome. The players have been awesome. And so while we're in the early stages of building here, I think we've got what we need. The infrastructure's in place, the foundation's in place, and ultimately I think that's all you can ask for. If you have the tools at your disposal, and they're just saying, hey, go make it happen. And I really feel that's what we have here.
Coach, put us in the room. So I'm a recruit, or I'm a parent of a recruit. How's that conversation go with you and the recruit? What are you talking about? What are you looking for other than the guy has to be able to play football? I am assuming that's got to be a main priority, but what else are you looking for in a Macalester football player?
I think, and this is something I took from Pedro at Macon, is just really focusing on character and understanding that talent, huddle highlights can be misleading. And talent, he always says talent can be a great distractor. So if all you're doing is evaluating off of huddle film or camp evaluations and recruiting off of football ability, you're going to recruit some headaches. And so I think that's one thing that I always try to keep in mind is finding players who are good enough to help us compete for championships and win football games here, but never losing sight of that character piece. And how important it is to surround yourself with great people. And I think, Macalester is a unique spot, and I want recruits and I want their families to understand that you're going to walk around campus here and you're going to see things that you've never seen before. You might hear things that you disagree with. And to me, that's what college should be about, right? It should be about expanding your horizons, broadening your perspectives. And I think Macalester does a phenomenal job of that. And I think from a football perspective, we really try to sell the fact that you're going to get a great education, but you can get a great education at a lot of schools. And so what's going to be different, what's going to be unique about Macalester. And, I think the big thing is just, we're going to kind of try to zig when everyone else is zagging, so to speak. We're going to consistently try to take the hard road. Whether that's, practicing early in the mornings. I think the weather here lends itself to challenging atmospheres, but just consistently leaning into, making the hard decision, making the difficult decision, and then creating an environment where you're not necessarily relying on willpower or discipline to grow, but you're in an environment where you almost have to consistently make those tough decisions, where the difficult decision becomes the easy decision because of who you're surrounded with and just the structure and the systems in place in our program. And
then talk to us a little bit about, so you'll be the fourth MEAC coach that we've had on. And I guess fill me in on, especially, we're PIAA guys. I mean, you got what, 6 divisions or 6 conferences or classifications, and that's kind of your top schools. You're in your 6A and you work your way down. What is Minnesota high school ball look like? What is the recruitment trail looking like for you guys?
Yeah, but Macalester is interesting. A lot of those MIAC schools in our conference are going to recruit a lot of Minnesota, a lot of Wisconsin. We're not able, just with the academic standards that we have here, we're not able to just kind of put up that 4.5, 5 hour radius around Macalester and only recruit there. So we actually we try to be really thorough in Minnesota. We try to be thorough in Wisconsin. We try to be thorough in Illinois, those Midwest kind of hot spots. But we also recruit a lot of Pacific Northwest, a lot of California kids. We do okay in Texas. We do okay. We've done okay in Florida in the past, and the Northeast as well. So I know I just covered the majority of the United States there, but that's really how we operate. We try to be thorough in our backyard, but also understand that a lot of really good fits for Macalester are not going to be in our backyard, and so we need to be pretty intentional about going out west and going down south and trying to dig up some guys who might not have as many opportunities as your typical high school football player will in the Northeast or the Midwest.
Well, and it's interesting. I was thinking about what you were saying there with a lot of your guys, Pacific West and the West Coast side. One of the Twitter pages that I follow that does a lot of the stats for D3 just put out a thing that there's 14 states that don't have any D3 programs. And it's funny, it's Delaware and Florida, and then the rest of the states listed are all like New Mexico, Arizona, and the list goes on. Is D3 growing that way where the people that are playing in the West are able to come to the Midwest and kind of work their way east to continue to play ball?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully you're not killing our secret here, but that's kind of our thought process in recruiting is, we've seen that there's this map of where Division III football schools are located. And, there's a heavy concentration in the Midwest, the Northeast, it's even worse, so we know a really good football player in Pennsylvania, New York, Massachusetts has a number of schools that he can drive to within 2 hours, really good academic schools, similar academic schools. I think back to my time in Colorado Springs, and that's not the case out there. You go out to California, that's not the case. You go to Oregon, Washington, that's not the case. I mean, if young men want to play college football and they're not a D1 or a D2 level player, or even if they are a FCS or D2 level player, but they really want that elite academic institution, they're probably going to have to get on an airplane. And so, like I said, we try to be thorough in the Midwest. We try to get some guys out of the Northeast, but you go out to California, you go out to the Pacific Northwest, and you're just not dealing with as much competition. So it makes a lot of sense to do that. And we're again still in the early phases, but we've had some success doing that.
I apologize for letting the cat out of the bag there.
I don't think it's any secret. I mean, you go to camps in the Northeast, and there's just so many schools there, so many college coaches, and can we be successful there recruiting? Absolutely. It's just gonna it's gonna take a certain type of young man to want to get on an airplane and fly to Minnesota rather than stay within driving distance of his parents and his family. And so, I recognize that. I understand that. I remember what it was like to be an 18-year-old. And so we just, I think you go out where there's not so much competition, and you increase your chances. You're going to end up spinning your wheels a lot less.
Coach, let's talk about the 2023 season. So we're heading into the final week. Obviously, the Stag Bowl is Friday. What are your thoughts now that you've had time to look back and kind of process what the season was, and where do you think the strengths were? What are some of the things you guys are going to work on in the offseason?
Yeah, it's funny. We went 5-5 my first season here, and then kind of took a step back did take a step back in the win-loss column my second year to 3-7. And I look back over those 2 seasons and really feel like the 5-5 might have been the misleading year, not the 3-7. And I don't say that in terms of the players that we have or their commitment level. More so just the things that we're not consistently doing well, or the mistakes that we made. I think we got away with some stuff in that 5-5 year. And we got some breaks, and we didn't get those breaks last year. And I just think that when, you come in and you have some success your first year, it's really easy to just be like, hey, what we're doing is working. Let's just stay the course, and that 5-5 will become 6-4 and 7-3 in no time. And to take a step back in year 2, I've obviously had enough time to kind of process it now. And as much as I don't like losing, and I feel for especially the seniors that was their last year, I think we'll look back and that was a necessary experience for us to kind of open our eyes to the fact that the things we're doing, how we prepare, our off season, really everything top to bottom in our program needs to be reevaluated. And if we continue to just do the same things and expect the results to change, it's not going to happen. And if anything, we'll go backwards. And so it's almost been kind of a breath of fresh air coming off that season, just being able to now have some perspective on what's working, what needs to change, and kind of being able to have those conversations with our players and coaches and look at this next season as kind of, hey, let's start from scratch, man. Let's talk about in January when we come back, what are the expectations going to be in the weight room? And I'm talking specifics, not just, we got to make sure guys are in the weight room. No, like when guys are in the weight room, what's the expectation, and how are we going to make sure that expectation is met and that those standards are clear and communicated? And if they're not met, then, people are hearing about them, or so on and so forth. And so I do, as I said, I feel really bad for the seniors that just graduated with this being their last year. That's probably the one thing that the major regret I have is that I think that class had a lot of really good kids and a lot of really good young men who poured themselves into the program, and unfortunately weren't able to, if we're having success down the road, these guys that are graduating here, they're going to be a huge part of that. But they weren't able to be here when things turned around, and so I do feel for them. But overall, I think it was kind of a necessary difficult season for us to go through.
It makes sense. Coach, how has your philosophy changed from, let's go back to the 13 season and then to today? And maybe explain a little bit what your coaching philosophy is.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, that's a multifaceted question. There's a lot that goes into that. I'll go back to Coach Aruza at Randolph-Macon, and I think what they do really well is they play team football. I heard during I was watching the live stream of one of their playoff games, and I think they were like plus 18 on the season in the turnover margin. I know that consistently they play harder than they play harder for 4 quarters than most teams, because they're well conditioned. Their weight program is one of the best, I would imagine, if not the best in Division III football. And so my philosophy is that there's no shortcuts. I don't think there's any secret recipes or flashy sayings or buzzwords that make Macalester unique or are going to help us get to where we want to be. It's just doing what you need to do, but doing it at a high level. Everybody talks about not turning the ball over and winning the turnover margin. Well, Randolph-Macon does that. Everybody talks about playing really hard and playing with great effort. Randolph-Macon does that, right? Everybody talks about not being penalized. Randolph-Macon does that. So it's easy to point to, well, how did, because Coach Aruza's first few years there, I mean, they struggled. I mean, he had his 3-7 seasons, and what changed? Well, they consistently did the little things at an elite level. And I think they're, obviously in a different spot, much different spot than when he got there. And I'm kind of looking at our program as we're in those early phases. So what is my philosophy? My philosophy is we've got to invest in January. We've got to invest in February and really change how we do things, not just August through November, but how we do things 12 months out of the year. And that's from a development standpoint with our players. That's from a recruiting standpoint with our coaches. Let's make sure that we're not showing up in August and September expecting to win games that we haven't earned and worked for in the off season.
Makes sense. Win the games in January, then they come easy in August. I got what you're, well, not easy, but it's easier, I guess, is the way to say that.
Yeah, and it's cliche. Like, even when you said that, I kind of cringe because everyone says that, right? You win games over the sun, but it's true. It's like a lot of cliches. There's some truth to them. So I think that where we're at now, we've got to do a lot better job in January through August. And I think then we'll have September through November will be a lot more fun.
All right, Coach, we've come to that point. These are the 5 questions, and I popped one into my head. So there's going to be a 6th question just for you. So these 5 questions have nothing to do with football. They're just more or less to get to know you a little bit better. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Montana. Seclusion, not great cell service. So
I like that.
Probably Montana. Yeah. And I probably get rid of my cell phone.
I think all of us could do at least for a weekend, just get rid of the phone for a weekend and disconnect.
Yeah, no doubt. Best place on earth, Montana.
What's the most important lesson that you've learned over your career? And I think we touched on this a couple of times.
I think it's, honestly, I think it's surrounding yourself with good people. I think character and who you surround yourself with. I mean, you surround yourself with good people. Even losing games is going to be a worthwhile endeavor. Where you surround yourself with egos, entitlement, jerks. It's not going to be especially coaching football, it's not going to be a very rewarding experience. So just, again, it's another cliche, but surround yourself with really good people. And if you do that, I think the results are going to be worthwhile.
If you weren't coaching, what would you be doing and why?
I'd probably try to be an ultra marathoner. I would try to go professional, and I would not make a lot of money doing that. So I'd probably drive for Uber or something, or DoorDash. But I'd spend a lot of time on the road, on the trails, and try to compete in some of those ridiculous races. And I'd spend some more time doing that, I think.
Okay. This is the special one for you. Pittsburgh or Philly? Philly.
Not even close.
It's tough to hear that. We were doing so good, and
I know. My wife didn't grow up in Pittsburgh, but I met her at Carnegie Mellon, and she's a big Steelers Pens fan. So I get that friction all the time. So I'm well trained, well versed in defending my Philly ties.
I understand. Most people from the east side of the state are very well versed in that conversation.
Yeah, we tend to be pretty obnoxious about it. I like to think that I'm one of the more level-headed, but that might be my own personal bias coming out.
I know you're not saying that Steeler fans aren't obnoxious about the fact. I think as a Steeler fan, I know there was a lot of people that weren't ready for 7 to retire, and now the world is ending. And well, this is what happens. Football players retire and we move on.
No doubt.
So best compliment you've ever received?
Oof. Man, that's tough. Is that problematic that I can't think? Maybe I haven't gotten too many compliments over my
I will say a lot of the coaches, the second part of this question, everybody has one that pops into their head. This part is the part where you see everybody's like, I don't know what do you consider a compliment, and did I get any compliments?
I don't know if this is necessarily the best compliment. But when I was going through the interview process with Pedro, he had talked to some of my previous coaches, and one of the, I forget who said this, but one of the references that he got said that, I was went to a high academic school, but talking to me, you'd think I was a state school kid. And just kind of that I like to think that was kind of like a credit to just being a little bit more blue collar and not showing up and expecting that you have all the answers. Like sometimes at these higher academic schools that's how things go. So that was a big, something that I like to hang my hat on, is that humility, and the fact that I'm never going to have everything figured out or have all the answers. So that's how I translated that. I don't know how much of a compliment that was. It might've not been a compliment, but that was one that kind of stuck out to me.
Well, and here's the other part of the question. What's the best insult you've ever received?
Oof, man. The best insult I've ever, I just got I got flipped so much crap from my buddies in college and still here. I mean, I don't know how many. I'm a practicing vegan, so I don't eat meat, and so I just get so much crap from the the coaching community for everyone saying all I eat is like spinach and salads and things like that, and so I get a lot of crap from that. But I'm probably a really easy person to make fun of, and do a lot of dumb thing. Like I'm just kind of all over the place sometimes, and make a lot of mistakes. So I don't think I really answered your question, but I get a lot. I take a lot of crap from all angles, and I like it. I can dish it out too. So it's fun.
And then the last question that I've asked, I got to figure out a better way to word this. But was there a question that you were expecting me to ask you? And if so, how would you have answered it?
I mentioned to you, I think when we were emailing setting this up, I mentioned that I was my wife and I were expecting our first daughter, and she actually came a few weeks early. So I'm actually became a father like 10 days ago.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. But if I'm honest, like when I logged on for this call, I didn't really have much of an expectation, or I didn't prepare much, probably because of that whole fatherhood thing going on back home.
I imagine so.
And so, I don't really know that there's a question I was expecting. But I'll say that, like, if you had asked me about being a dad and about that experience, I mean, it's been awesome. And my wife has been been the MVP around the house, and just incredible. And I fall in love with her more every day, watching her be a mom, and being a dad has really put this whole coaching thing in perspective. And it's been an awesome 10 days. And I know the ups and downs are coming down the road for sure, but man, it's a whole nother level of love, and it's just really awesome. So,
well, Coach, I can say that when you see this back, you'll see it as well. That's a little segment right there. Your face lit up from the beginning of you talking until the last second there. You're still kind of like, There's just a big, so well, congratulations. I did actually have that in my notes and forgot to even bring it up. So thank you for reminding me.
Scotty Lou came a few weeks early. So December 3rd, we were expecting her a little bit closer to Christmas, towards the middle end of the month, and came early. So it's been a wild week and a half, but man, it's been awesome. So,
well, Coach, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time to sit down with us and get the heck back home to your wife and your daughter.
I know I need to. I gotta pick up some stuff on the way home and dart back, get back on diaper duty where I belong. So,
well, this has been Dingo Talk. We'll be back here in about 2 minutes for overtime with Serenity Brown. I want to say again, Coach, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll be right back, Chuckleheads.
What's going on, Chuckleheads, and welcome to Overtime with Serenity Brown. I am Carlo Guadagnino. That's Serenity Brown. Very nice, very festive. I beat you, though, because I got llamas. And they got scarves. Scarves. For the English majors out there, really don't need you to correct me. I know what I said was wrong. Let's just get that out of the way right now. We're not going to do that on the ugly sweater episode. Dang it. Lot to cover. You had some things that you would like to address to your state and or the university, the SUNY school from your state that is now the national champion. So the floor is yours.
Yeah. It's really just I apologize for underestimating you. Because I really didn't think they were going to pull it off, and they really did. So.
And let's talk about it a little bit. There's two plays in particular that kind of stand out to me. One, the decision on 4th and goal. Well, it wasn't 4th and goal. It was 4th and 17 from the 18-yard line. Originally, North Central brings out their field goal unit, then decides to call timeout. A little questionable there, icing your own kicker, and then decided to put the best offense in the country on the field and let them go get it. I think you kicked the field goal there. It's a championship game. I think you gotta try to take the points when you can.
Yeah.
They did struggle in the kicking game for a lot of the season. So I get the rationale there.
That's why they didn't.
And then obviously get to the end of the game. Cortland goes down and scores. 2 plays later, North Central is in the end zone and a 2-point conversion. And really, now
this is one that I actually kind of sort of watched.
Yeah, it's that last play where the quarterback from North Central rolls out and then just he runs into a wall. I watched a couple different angles on that play. Everybody fit where they were supposed to, except nobody accounted for the initial tackler, which then led to the gang tackle from Cortland. And there's no knock on North Central here. There's no knock on Cortland. Cortland played their balls off, but so did North Central. North Central didn't, they did not go away throughout that game. But the 2023 Stag Bowl champions are the Cortland Red Dragons, SUNY Cortland. So congratulations again. I also want to put some things out there just for the audience, for this segment in particular. You want to hear from her more? Like it's her segment, and we don't really get to. Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot. That's what we're doing.
I think we need to watch our mouths right here.
No, I think I'm well in. I can't watch my mouth either because the camera is facing me, but that's not how that works. Just saying, it is your segment, and I believe it is. It's Overtime with Serenity Brown. It's the
here. So that's
all right. So what we're gonna do is, and if it's okay with you, when we come back for season 4, obviously we got one more episode to go. I'm gonna recap a bunch of things next week, but when we come back for season 4, for the beginning of it at least, why don't you come with some questions, concerns, thoughts, and we'll kind of pick one each week, and we'll talk it out, get them involved. Maybe they have some opinions. They had a couple opinions when you made mistakes. They were there. They were there to say, "Excuse me, do you know who that team is?" And you were there to tell them. No, you didn't.
No.
So, again, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to spend with us for this season 3. We're getting really, really close to the end here, and wrapping things up. Season 4, we've already started to talk to some coaches. We have about 15 lined up so far. A couple other coaches we just got to get scheduled down. They're not on that list of 15, but they're in there as well. Coach Spencer and Coach Fitzpatrick, North Central's head coach, Cortland's head coach, you're more than welcome. We have an open door for you, for both of you. If you guys want to come on at the same time, we'll have a conversation.
Hey, that'd be kind of a cool episode.
But that being said, for those of you that have stuck with us on this journey, for those of you that are new to the journey, and for those of you that have come and gone and come back, we really appreciate you. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for talking with us and sharing the episodes and letting us know what we need to improve on. And I hope you'll stick around for next week and season 4. But, got anything else?
I don't think so.
We just need to get the full, yeah. So vote on who you think had the uglier sweater, me with my llamas.
I'm pretty sure both of these. Has that sweater been on the show before?
I don't think so. This is a first for this one. This one was what I wore
This
last
one
year.
is about time to retire and get a new.
Yeah, well. So vote. Let us know which one you thought was uglier. And we will see you next week, Chuckleheads.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Dingo Talk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.